Hi, I'm Mark Duncan and welcome to LVI TV, your weekly dental news source. I want to talk to you about some papers that have been published literally over a span of more than a century. And yet, as a profession, we're still not addressing the fundamental issues. One of our most respected authorities in prosthetics today is Dr. Carl Misch. In one of his textbooks, he discusses the causes of abfractions and pins it to parafunctional clenching or bruxism. In it, he cites a study done by Dr. McCoy, published in 1982, where he reported toothbrush abrasion on every other tooth, and in some cases, only on one tooth in the arch, and even on animal teeth. Now, it's pitifully obvious that these lesions aren't from brushing, and yet we're all taught that from the very beginning, when we're taught to count to 32. Well, by way of personal reference, I think in 1982 is about the same time I was going through puberty, so for sure it was in time for it to have made it into my dental education, but dental schools still don't teach this. They still continue to teach us toothbrush abrasion. What I was taught was to educate our patients not to brush back and forth in sawing motions, but rather use the modified Bass technique. Now, I totally agree with modified Bass. We should, but the reality is we should be calling it gum brushing, not toothbrushing at all. We were taught this OCD repetitive movement was wearing out our enamel, the hardest substance in the body. For sure harder than the extra soft bristled toothbrushes we use every day. But a couple things. One is, where did this idea even come from? And the other one is, how could we have missed something so pitifully obvious? How could we have missed that in between most of these notches there's this big healthy papilla? How could that be there if we're scrubbing the enamel away, right? It couldn't. It would have been a bloody mess until it healed, and then there were huge holes where the gums are supposed to go. As for where it started, it was postulated by Dr. Miller in the early 1900s that with toothbrush bristles being made out of boar's hair, we didn't really know how stiff they were. Well, now our brushes are end-tufted nylon. You can't even find anything stiffer than medium. Moreover, G.V. Black pointed out that he had patients with these lesions who don't even use a toothbrush. Pretty clearly shows it can't be toothbrushing causing these lesions. And that was something he was talking about in 1895. Toothbrushing technique is important to keep the gums healthy, but really what we need to focus on is for the teeth and parafunction. That bruxing and grinding is creating force vectors and creep strain that ultimately leads to fatigue failure in the teeth. Estimates are that 80 to 85% of adults brux or clench, and that's where we can help. We have the power to eliminate bruxism and most clenching, actually. As our understanding of occlusion grows, we may well sort out the rest, but for now, we can help almost all of those patients. And the really cool thing is that the problem isn't just the abfraction lesions. We also get to help with the comorbid factors like myofascial pain or migraine-type pain or neck pain, numb fingertips, and on and on. Along with this dysfunctional macroocclusion, we also have the airway to consider. An overclosed bite causing abfraction lesions can be painful during the day, but in many cases leads you to literally stop breathing at night. Dr. Grippo introduced the term abfraction lesions in 1991. He says, due to stresses resulting from biomechanical loading, forces exerted on the teeth, static as in swallowing or clenching, or cyclic as in chewing, both enamel and dentin can chip or break away, and this loss of tooth substance, which should be termed abfraction, is dependent on the magnitude, duration, direction, frequency, and location of the forces. These abfractive lesions are caused by flexure and ultimate material fatigue of susceptible teeth at locations away from the point of loading. Clinical observation of a variety of enamel and dentin lesions due to the shapes, sizes, loci, and frequency warrants a new and distinct classification. It's time we start to treat the system that is creating these. Obviously, dentistry is about teeth, but it's so much more than that, and it has been for over 100 years. We just have to pay attention to the tissues around the mouth, too. Does a day even go by in your office that the hygienists aren't telling the toothbrush abrasion story? How many patients in your practice are using a night guard? How many are using Botox for migraines or Emitrex for migraine-type pain? You hold the keys to helping these patients by simply getting their jaws in a comfortable relationship. Getting physiology on your side can literally change the lives of your patients. If you're already treating issues like OSA and head and neck pain, please share your stories below. And as always, like us and subscribe so you don't miss an episode of LVI TV. I'll see you next time. I'm Mark Duncan.